Hey everyone, Catch 'em All Collectibles here. In today's video, we're going to do it. We've done financial advice, so we are going to do tax advice. We're going to hop right into it. I'll give you quickly an overview of what you can expect in this video. I'll try to keep it as succinct as possible. 3 top tax tips. I've given a lot of tips various places, Pokeflips, my own videos here and there. I'm going to put the best 3 in one place so you can have quick, easy access to them. Secondly, I'm going to give you a quick overview, expectation versus reality. I think there's a lot of weird expectations of what happens out there, how taxes work, and unfortunately, we don't get taught much of this in school. So let me give you a quick rundown on how things go. We'll take a look at a 1040, a Schedule C, what that looks like, the actual document from the IRS for 2022. And then I'll just discuss briefly how the summary I give to my accountant relates to that, where some of the numbers may or may not go. Kind of an overview of the nuts and bolts behind what actually goes on in doing one's taxes for a Pokemon business or hobby. And then lastly, we will just quickly cover where and how to pull reports. Where do these things come from? You got to have the data and you got to know how to access it to manipulate the numbers, to give them to the accountants, to give them to the IRS, whatever you're doing, right? You need to know what numbers are relevant and where they come from. So let's just hop right into it. My 3 best bits of tax advice I can give to anybody. 1, pay them. Pay your taxes. It's the patriotic thing to do. I do say, in parentheses, the least amount legally possible and optimal for you. So it's not always going to be the least. Sometimes strategically you pay some in a given year. I'm going to get a little bit into that discussion, but at the end of the day, it truly is tying in with number 3, decided between you and your accountant. What is optimal for you? What is optimal for me is not always going to be optimal for you. There is no right answer. There's no universal one truth, one way to do it. Everyone's situation is going to be different. And that's why you really need to, jumping right to number 3, consult a professional. I am not a professional. I'm not an accountant. I'm none of those things. I know we joke about all this, but it is actually serious business. And you do need to consult a professional local to you. Laws are always changing. They vary by zip code, if not down to the street level, house number level. It's kind of crazy, the tax system we have out there. So the key for number 1, avoidance. Tax avoidance is good business. Tax evasion will straight to jail. That meme, I should have put that one in there. Straight to jail, tax evasion. We don't want to do that. We want to avoid, not evade. Avoid through legal means. One example, I'm an S corporation now. That is not an idea that I had or came up with. That is an idea my accountant gave to me. Hey, if we restructure your business from a sole proprietorship to an S corporation, forming an LLC in between, doing our S election. I know these words because my accountant said them to me. I looked them up briefly, what they all mean. But at the end of the day, I paid an attorney and I paid an accountant, and that goes right into number 3. Number 2, very, very important though. I always answer this when I talk about some of the top mistakes I've made and top tips I can give to people that are just starting. Separate accounts. Don't be buying your groceries on the same credit card you're buying your Pokemon cards for resale. Just don't do it. It makes everything so much harder. Honestly, even if you're starting out today solely with intent to collect, never going to sell anything, never, create a Pokemon credit card. Create a Pokemon business or separate checking account. I know at my bank account, again, everything varies across people and across company, and I think all bank accounts are probably different, but I have a bank account with a credit union that allows me to basically create sub accounts within one. So within my one checking account, I could create a sub account, call it Pokemon, and then every expense, every time I pay off that Pokemon credit card, it comes out of that sub account. So having isolation, not having to root through, is this business or personal, just knowing that every expense on that credit card, every expense going into that bank account, in and out of it, is Pokemon related. That is going to make your life so much easier when it comes to pulling the reports and things that I talked about later. Same thing with eBays. Have 2 eBay accounts. I have a personal eBay account that I buy stuff. I pay sales tax on it when it's for my household, random stuff for around the house, random cords, random video games or something, not business related. And then I have an eBay with a sales tax exemption, buying things for resale. It makes things so much easier. I don't have to go through 1,000 lines on an eBay. Oh, that was my blender. I paid sales tax on that. That one I need to take out because it doesn't go to my account and doesn't factor into my business. You don't want to be doing any of that. It just muddies everything up and it makes it so much harder. So yeah, pay your taxes, but pay the least amount, the optimal amount for you. 401ks, IRAs, things like that. There are many, many ways as corporations to legally minimize and optimize, reduce, avoid some amount of taxes legally. And yeah, your accountant, number 3, will steer you in the right direction. That is their job. Their job is to charge you money ideally a good accountant will actually charge you less money than they saved you by just finding you extra deductions, finding you ways to lower your tax bill legally. So I think I went on enough on that tab, but they are very, very important. Here's a quick thing, expectation versus reality. Every time I hear someone talk about taxes, and intentionally there's nothing on this slide for right now, anytime I hear someone talk about taxes, it's just mind-blowing what some of them may think that accountants do, almost as if you hand them your login for your eBay. Please don't ever give anyone your login for any of your accounts, but I think some people have the expectation that you hand them the login for your eBay, or you send them a credit card statement and they just do everything from that. I don't really know, but it reminded me of the movie Dodgeball. So let me see if this clip plays. Hopefully you can hear the audio.
You do keep financial records, don't you? Invoices, revenue reports, taxable income.
You kidding me? I got a whole closet full.
Here.
Yeah. Call them keepers. Problem is I've never really filed them.
No kidding. You do keep financial
Probably hits a little bit close to home for some people. I think the state of Peter in the movie Dodgeball, I love that movie. The state of Peter's record keeping or lack thereof is very common when people get that first 1099 in the mail. And you may have found this video because you just got your first 1099 in the mail. Don't panic. Just start on it sooner rather than later. The closer we get to April 15th, the more accountants will be busy doing people's taxes, like myself, doing other businesses' taxes, other people that were a little bit ahead of the game. The later you go, the more expensive it's going to be. I can promise you that. And, but yeah, I think one of the big misconceptions I see is the difference between like bookkeepers and accountants. I don't personally use a bookkeeper, and I'm going to show you briefly soon how I pull reports. So I pull reports and I separate all the relevant information and I summarize that and I send that to my accountant. My accountant at the end of the day, they put all the numbers where they need to go on the IRS forms, and they relay the information between me and them. They're not really doing much calculation wise. I mean, they're doing the calculations that the sheets require, the tax sheets, but they're not going through and looking at what I paid for individual collections or cards. They're not seeing any of that. They're seeing one number, what I paid for the whole year. And let me actually, let me find we'll go right to the Schedule C now, Form 1040. Let's see if I can find the right one to reshare.
You do keep financial records, don't you? Invoices, revenue reports, taxable income.
Got the video playing again, sorry. So yeah, Form 1040, profit or loss from business. If you are a sole proprietor, which many people when they start will be, many people very far along in their journey as a business will continue to be a sole proprietor. That optimization is again going to be determined by your accountant. What's right for you isn't what's going to be right for me and right for everybody else. There's no right or wrong way. I think a lot of people leap into an LLC not knowing what one means, not knowing if they actually need to do it. So yeah, be sure to actually talk to professionals and ensure that you are structured properly, because that is one of their key roles in their expertise. With their expertise, they determine that for you. But yeah, this is the actual form that gets filed with the IRS. I do not put one number on this form. I do not put one number, but everything that I give to my accountant, I literally have, when I pull reports from Troll and Toad, when I pull reports from eBay, PayPal, Heritage, PWCC, Golden, my credit cards, my bank accounts. I have a spreadsheet, a Google Sheet spreadsheet with 12 tabs with thousands and tens of thousands of lines total. All I do with that is I basically do like a mass balance around each thing. And I find out where the money went. I find out what you can see. Part 1 right here, income, gross receipts or sales. That's basically all my eBay receipts, all my PayPal receipts, all the PWCC, anywhere you sold, all the in-person conventions, all those things sum together and go on one line. And then some of the expenses, and your accountant can walk you through this, which ones apply to you and which ones don't. You're not necessarily going to fill in every line. But advertising, if you run ads on Instagram to promote your business, if you pay fees to eBay, if you pay promoted listings fees to eBay. And again, some of these, whether promoted listings fees actually go on line 8 or whether they go on line 10, commissions and fees, those are the things that I don't get into. But yeah, legal and professional services. If you're paying an accountant, likely things like that go there. Office expense, taxes and licensing, utilities, travel. Are you doing simplified business use of your automobiles? Do you have a business automobile that you write off fully, 100% use for your business? Cost of goods sold, cash versus accrual basis, inventory, modified cash, inventory calculations. So many things here. So many things. It's a little bit daunting. I understand that. But at the end of the day, materials and supplies, grading fees, like I don't necessarily... I don't put any numbers onto these lines. I just give, I'm going to pause briefly. Sorry for the cut, but instead of going over just vaguely what this form is, because I actually don't even use this form. This is for an individual Schedule C, Form 1040, profit or loss from a business. You can see right underneath it, sole proprietorship. I'm an S corporation. I think that's a very rare situation for many people in the hobby, even in businesses running this. So let me just go right to the summary example that I gave to my accountant, that I give to my accountant each year. Sorry, it's a little bit blurry. It's just because it's fairly zoomed in. I had to zoom in to omit. Somewhere over here would be the actual numbers that I submitted to my accountant for this year. But this is literally a very near full version of what I give to my accountant. Every bit of information I give them, and then they put them on the lines of not the Schedule C for me. It used to be that, but whatever form I don't even know what it's called for an S corporation. At the end of the day, it's all fairly similar though. It's all quite similar. Advertising and promotion. Something for me personally that would hit on that would be like my business cards, Vistaprint orders. Again, you'll have to go through with your accountant what that may be. Meals and entertainment. Some amount of that on business trips are actually deductible. When I go out to collecticons, some amount of meals, again, what the daily limits are, what goes on exactly, that comes down to a conversation between you and your accountant. If you're doing $500 in gross sales for a year and you try to write off $1,000, $2,000 in meals and entertainment, you're probably going to have a bad time. I can't make any recommendations towards that, but I know that I have this situation figured out. I give my numbers to my accountant and we go from there. Bank, credit card fees, office supplies, think of padded envelopes, think of stamps, things of that nature. And again, some of these things, some of these categories, there might be some overlap. So there are certain things, I said stamps, office supplies, feels like it could go under there, but then there's postage shipping. So you just need to be sure that you know exactly where each one goes and you have the understanding worked out between your accountant who's filing your taxes, because at the end of the day, again, I put my numbers into this form that you're seeing now. I do not put them onto any IRS document. The accountant does all that. And the first year that I work with them, tons of questions, tons of back and forth over different things. Each subsequent year, it's less and less. We get it more streamlined. Over to the far right, one, you can't see the numbers, but even further, I have notes. I have notes on this is where I put my shipping fees on my Citi credit card. This is where I put my shipping fees that come through eBay Inc. shipping that I pay through this PayPal account. There's a fair bit to it, but as you start working through it, it sorts itself out. Professional and legal fees, paying my accountant to do my stuff, that's actually a tax write-off because it's required for the business. Phone and internet expenses. I have Again, depending on how it breaks out, depending on how it works, if you have a personal phone that you use a certain percent for business, if you have an entirely different business line, entirely different business internet service, vehicle insurance, this comes down to whether or not you're taking the simplified 62 cents per mile, whatever it is for 2022, versus doing your actual total travel expenses. And what's right for me isn't going to always be right for you. So parking and tolls, travel expenses, gas, hotels, business flights. Again, if you're trying to claim $20,000 of business travel on $5,000 in gross sales, good luck, I guess. There's clearly got to be limits of some kind, but I don't know exactly what those would be. I'm very comfortable with what I do in those instances. Office expenses, if you're renting, leasing a place, thankfully I don't have overhead like that. But real estate taxes, utilities, doing subscriptions, postage, shipping, waste, trash removal, website expenses, eBay store fees, things of that nature, large asset expenses. Certain things you can't write off all in 1 year. Certain things, like if you're buying a big vault, if you're buying a safe, going back to my video last week, certain things need to be amortized, capitalized across multiple years. I know some of these words, I don't know what it all means, and I don't know what the threshold is either. Say you buy a brand new PC, you build a PC to stream with and this and that. In certain instances, in certain cases, certain dollar amounts, certain thresholds, you can write off entire things in 1 year, but certain times it needs to be capitalized across multiple years. I just know that because certain things that I went to my accountant with, they said, yep, we're going to do this way. We're going to do that one this way. And consult professionals. Vehicle payments, licenses, continuing education, computer software. Not all of these had actual values for me. This was just like a default thing that my accountant uses. I think I did subtract off certain ones because this accountant that I work with, they probably work with pizzerias. They probably work with completely different businesses that we all have different things. You can see square fees. I cross that out and I put separately for them. I think at the end of the day, they all go on one line. But for me, for my own records, I break out all my receipts, all my expenditures. I break them out by account. So I give the fees separately. All together I give them, but then I also break out separately PayPal fees versus eBay fees versus Troll and Toad fees, and PWCC fees. And if I sell on Heritage, if I sell on Golden, if I sell, wherever I sell, I give the gross amount. And getting into that, very important thing. When you get a 1099, if you get a 1099 from eBay, PayPal, they give you the gross amount. And generally speaking, I've never seen it before, at least with me. It's always the gross amount. Not only do they not subtract out fees or shipping or anything like that, they don't even subtract out payments that you ultimately refunded. So say you took in 100 payments throughout the year of $300 each for $30,000 total. If one of those 100 payments got refunded, your gross would be $30,000. You would have to subtract off the $300 refund for $29,700. And there's a line for that for returns and allowances. I think we'll see it down below. But this is how I break out my total receipts. At the end of the day, it's all summed together. I believe it all goes on one line. But for me to know I'm doing it all right, I mentioned earlier in the opening, I do kind of a mass balance around every account because I have one bank account, but then I have a Wise account. And I pay out consignments through one account, and I pay out some consignments through PayPal, and I pay out some consignments by check. So at the end of the day, you really need to just make sure all the numbers jive. You need to make sure all the numbers check off. You need to make sure everything just sums to zero, kind of like a balance sheet. You have your inflows and your outflows, and they all need to sum, and they all basically need to cancel each other out, sum to zero at the end of the day. If they don't, you're missing something. You need to continue working through. Unfortunately, I thought about showing you some of my 1099 reconciliation files. I thought about trying to show some of my eBay. Here's my 5,000 sales I made. Here's my 15,000 sales I made on Troll and Toad. I just can't really show any of it because there's addresses and there's names. If I redacted all the information I'd have to redact, it wouldn't have any use to you. But continuing on further, I take my eBay 1099, Troll and Toad, Evo doesn't give a 1099, nor does PWCC. You still need to pay taxes on things whether or not you get a 1099. Especially when big numbers moving in and out of business accounts. If you try to circumvent things, if you try to do it the wrong way, you're going to have a bad time if you ever get audited. And I do it above board. I play by the rules. I sleep well at night and I'm doing great. People really overly fear taxes, in my opinion. I think people overly fear two things, fees and taxes. And I think it's one of the biggest things that hold people back. Just trying to skirt the rules, trying to do things the wrong way. And they put a low ceiling on themselves. They cap their potential because they can't sell over 19,999 and they can't go over 200 transactions. And whether or not that number changes to 600 in the future, it's just the wrong way to go about things, in my opinion, and legally in the IRS's opinion and the government's opinion. So, other receipts that I have, wise sales, direct bank wires. Sometimes I just do a direct bank wire into my business bank account. I sold those number one, sorry, not the number one, but the number 2 and number 4 trophy to Rusty. He paid me by direct bank wire. And at the end of the day, yeah, I look at my I almost said the name. I look at my credit union account and I see the eBay going in and out when I buy and I sell, and I see my credit cards being paid, and I see there's a lot. There's a lot. When you scale, it gets to be where there's hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of transactions. But at the end of the day, when you're inside of Excel, when you're inside of just summing a column, it's all simple formulas. It's all pluses and minuses. There's no advanced calculus. There's no differential equations going on. It's just addition and subtraction of many, many numbers. So it's really not that bad. Crypto, I didn't do any crypto in 2022, but I did do some in 2021 and 2020. So that's a thing that's on there. It might not be used every year, but it might be used here and there. Cash sales too. Cash sales at conventions, cash sales. It's not anything I do like in person around where I live, but conventions primarily. eBay partner network, YouTube revenue. I didn't put, like, if someone wants to ask, try to catch me up, Patreon consultations, things like that. Those all come through PayPal or cash, things of that nature. So those do show up. They just don't have their own separate line like that. And then expenses and returns. This is where purchases for resale. I have 2 different business credit cards that I add in there. And then I also, I pay for certain things through ACH. I pay for certain things directly from my bank account. So grading fees are sometimes paid on credit card. Sometimes I've paid them with ACH. It really gets, one tip that I'm going to try to use myself is try to pay for similar things in similar ways. When I pay for grading fees only through credit card, it makes it easier to isolate all of them. I go into my Citi Double Cash card and I pull all the PSA card. I pull all the CGC card. I had Ludkins and I had Black Card X. I had things like that going on. So it just made it so much harder to narrow down and find them all. But this is literally, it's one sheet. You could print it out on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. And that is what I send to my accountant. That is all they get for $1.2 million plus in sales, as I mentioned in my my video a little while back. That's it. That's all it is. And I just did want to show, this is my personal eBay account that I've never sold through. I only buy through. This is the one that I talked about earlier. But if you want to know where to find this stuff, your bank, your credit cards, I'm not going to show mine because it's not relevant. You might not have the same cards as me. But at the end of the day, every platform you sell through has some way of retrieving the files. eBay 1099s you, which is great. It's amazing. It allows you to cross-check your own numbers, but you can pull out reports here of your entire 2022. You can pull out 1099K reconciliations. If you have a 1099, it will be in this taxes. Basically, all I'm in is the eBay overview, the selling overview. But yeah, payments, taxes, payouts, reports, their performance. You can go to sales and you can pull reports. There's so many ways for every platform to pull a different report. And then you get into the spreadsheet. Some people use bookkeeping software. Some people use QuickBooks, things like that. I've always used Excel or Google Sheets. So once you have everything done, I used to be a chemical engineer. I used to have to do mass balances around a reactor. And I used to have to account for some of the vapors leaving through the stack, through the scrubber. I used to have to account for process losses in the floor sweeps and in the so many things I had to account for, and it was very, very difficult because it was all prone to plus and minus due to variation in the instruments that we use to measure these numbers, and there was propagation of error and uncertainty and this and that. At the end of the day, this is all dollars and cents. They don't disappear. They don't get lost. There's no yield number. It's 100% yield. Every time you transfer money, all of it goes there. Every time money comes in, all of it comes in. The dollars and cents always add up, and they always balance to zero. It's called a balance sheet because you balance the ins and outs and you balance them to zero. Whereas with a chemical process, it's much more difficult because there are losses, some known, some unknown. That's not a thing in this. It's all fairly simple. I spent about 25-30 minutes probably making it sound a little more complex than it does. Let me know in the comments below. How did you like this video? Let me know in the comments below if this felt to be any use to you. I hope that seeing the actual summary sheet that I send to my accountant, obviously without the numbers, I'm not as transparent as Nick. Shout out to old school Pokemon. But seeing the 1040, seeing where the numbers go, or if you're a sole proprietor, seeing the summary that I send to my accountant to fill out those numbers, to fill out those forms. Seeing the funny clip from Dodgeball. Yeah, I think a lot of people just have no idea where to start. So hopefully this video may have been step one for you. Maybe this video maybe you're seeing the 1040 for the first time. Maybe you're getting familiar with this stuff for the first time, knowing where to find your 1099K, knowing where to find PayPal, similar thing. If you don't know, if it's a city double cash, where do I export a CSV is what you want to do. Whether you're on Google Sheets or Excel, or I think Apple calls it numbers. CSV is like the universal comma separated value is what you want to be able to work with things in spreadsheets. So yeah, I think I've gone on long enough. Hopefully I covered everything I wanted to cover. Hopefully it provided a little bit of value, but that's it. That's everything I've got. So let me know in the comments below if you want to see more videos like this. If you want me, anything I didn't cover on taxes that you want me to cover. Obviously I can't get into like your specific scenario because you need an accountant for that. You need someone actually certified to do that stuff. But yeah, I will link below too. I meant to mention it earlier in the video. Some great, Not Your Dad's CPA is a great YouTube account that I follow. He's actually a CPA. He's actually an accountant. He has some great videos on cash versus accrual basis, on sole proprietor versus S Corp versus C Corp versus LLC, and if I can write off my inventory when I buy it or if I have to do it when I sell it, cost of goods sold, all of those topics. And Daily Refinement has a great video kind of going over his summary of what he sends to his accountant. So I will try to remember to link those below in the description. But yeah, that's it. Trying to end here for the third time now, but ending for real. I appreciate you all watching, and I will catch you all later.